1 2 1 2, and we are live. Hello, how are we doing? Welcome to the second of these live streams. I hope you're all doing well. So this is first of all, thank you very much. If you caught the last one, it was a really fun thing to do. I've mentioned I've done a few streams before on, doing DJ sets and stuff, but it's kind of fun, and also kind of a bit weird when you look back through your old tracks. And I don't know about you guys, but I start seeing all the flaws and things I could have done better. But it is what it is. Again, the purpose of these things isn't to uncover those necessarily. It's really to kind of just show you how I do it. Not saying if it's necessarily right or wrong. It's just to show you what my workflow is, how I've created some of these songs, and then hopefully you can create your own songs, and I can learn from you in some future state. That'd be really cool. So yeah, second breakdown of a track. This is a song from my last mixtape / album called TMSk8. The song is called Oppressor. And yeah, it's a really cool track. I'm very proud of. Really great getting Mila Todd to guest on the track as well. Really cool to get her vocals on there. In fact, I believe there are some pictures. Hurrah! That was Mila. So the one on the left is from a video she actually did from we did a little launch streamy thing on YouTube actually when the album launched. When was it now? Came out in November, I believe, last year. So yeah, Mila did a video there, and the picture on the right is actually from the recording session, and I'll get back to that in a bit when we actually record the live vocal. But that was really cool. That was a really great thing. So that's Mila. She wrote all the words. To me, the vocal actually sums up quite a few different things that have been going on over the past year, or the Black Lives Matter, Me Too movement, even some of the kind of the feelings that have been going on around the whole kind of lockdown that we've all witnessed and been through. But to know exactly what they're about, you'd have to speak to Mila. I'm sure she'll be happy to have a chat with you about it at some point. So let me switch back to the camera. So yeah, plan is kind of like I did last time. I'll go through the track. I'll go through the different stems, the different sections of the track, and give you a bit of a breakdown. I'll try and keep to about an hour for this. If you've got any questions, if you want to ping me, I'm monitoring the chat as well. So yeah, feel free to ask me any questions as I go. Also, I should say I've got a slightly different microphone this week, so apologies for the microphone issues from last time. So hopefully it won't pop and kind of whistle quite so much as it did last time. Not so much sibilance. So yeah, you should be able to hear my voice better over the audio. Hopefully you can hear me now. If you can't, never mind, I am live. Okay, so where should we start then? Let's go to Ableton, and I'll show you the Ableton window. That's probably a good place to start. And I put myself in the corner because you can see my face as I'm walking through this. So this one's slightly different to a lot of my tracks. This track was mainly based around one sample, really, or one track. And it's a song called "You Don't Know What Love Is" by a guy called Fenton Robinson. I can say this: I cleared the complete song. Obviously, I always try to clear my songs and the samples I use. But I actually used. It was a thing on. I don't know if you guys have seen the Rhythm Roulette. But there was some kind of partnership between Rhythm Roulette and Tracklib, who are a fairly new website that's come up to help to make buying songs and then figuring out the licensing for sampling those songs easier, and it's actually really useful. So I'd recommend it. So they had this feature on this site where you could press a button and it would give you 3 songs, and then if you want to, you can buy the songs and then you can sample them. And the great thing about Tracklib, and I'm not endorsed by Tracklib or anything like that, but the great thing about them is it tells you how much it would cost to license that track and sample it up front. So you know, before you get too carried away with the track, and we've all been there, you're like, this is great, and then you realise you have to pay hundreds and hundreds to clear some some kind of, I don't know, Diana Ross sample or whatever else you happen to be using. So this is one, and I felt comfortable with the price, and it's a good track in its own right. It's a good track, and it kind of sparked that kind of inspiration, and led to a kind of a rework solely track of my own right. So actually, getting slightly ahead of myself. For anyone who hasn't heard the track, I'm going to bring up my Bandcamp page. Okay, sorry if there was mic issues earlier, but that is the original track. So, and you can get it. It's on my Bandcamp. There's a link below if you want to have a look at the at my Bandcamp page and get the album, or it's on Spotify and all that stuff as well. I should say, if I've got time, I will go into the drum and bass mix I did afterwards as well, but I want to focus on the original first. Okay, so let's go back to Ableton. So yeah, as I mentioned, the song is basically based on this song called "You Don't Know What Love Is" by a guy called Fenton Marshall. It's a cool song. It's this kind of blues jam. So just so you know what that is, I'm going to play a bit of that, and you can see what I kind of started and kind of worked with. There you go. That's the original song. So I'm going to get rid of that now. So the first thing I did when I was looking through this is to start playing with the sample and chopped it up. And what I found, I'll get to this bit in a bit and how I made the intro. What I found was a couple of kind of loops. So I've got the main kind of chord progression here, and let me just open that up. So really kind of high passing that, a bit of saturation and a bit of EQ. Nothing too fancy really. And if you remember back to last week, there is some that audio there. So my templates normally have a couple of channels, and then that routes to a bus channel here. So that goes to the main audio channel, which is this one. So, and just some kind of channel EQ on there, and a bit of a high pass thing just to get rid of rumble. So the main kind of riff is this bit. Here I sped the whole track up to 93 BPM. And that's the main kind of thing that I based the track around. And then there's a bit of a kind of more rhythmic kind of groove just based on one chord here, which is what I use for the verses. So the other main sample, and there's other little bits as well, like I kind of cut little things to make fills and that kind of thing. So the other sample is this vocal thing. Now I did this slightly differently. So you see here. So if I just play that to you and I'll pan that to the right, just have a bit of separation. You don't know. So the way I did that is using the filters. So if I go to the clip envelope here, and again, if you want more detail on general kind of Ableton kind of moving it around, there are loads and loads of really good Ableton tutorials available on the internet, which are worth looking at. So I'm not going to go into all the kind of detail within how to do some of this stuff necessarily within Ableton. So just a quick reminder, I use Ableton Live 11 primarily, or Ableton Live as my main software. So these are clips. So what I've done here is just with the main clip volume, or that main piece of the volume, tried to get rid of the first hit, so the audio just, so it's basically just that "you don't know" sound snippet. So I got this. You don't know. You don't know. That's 2 loops. If I just get rid of that temporarily, I'll show you what I mean. What's that there in terms of the full track, or the full snippet, I should say. You don't know what love. You don't know. But I didn't want the whole thing. I didn't want the kind of rolled and everything. So I just wanted that vocal bit. So if I just undo that. So that was the main vocal, and again that's kind of panned. That hopefully the stereo is coming across, but that's panned to the right so when you have the two together, it's something like this. You don't know. You don't know. And that's the main thing. I kind of based a good chunk of the track around, really. So that's the main sample. And then again, so I'm not going to spend too long on the drums this time, because I spent way too long on the drums last time. The drums are important. The drum, you get the drums right, and really that makes the whole track. So that's always my philosophy. Anyway, so similar thing here. So these aren't 808 drums, and I can't honestly remember where I got these samples from, but I wanted kind of more dusty, soul-y drums in this kit, or for this track. They kind of work better. So let me just solo the drums here first. So pretty straight kind of, and I sorry about that. If I remember correctly, I played the drums in, and I wanted something that kind of worked with the sample, was to kind of complemented the sample, the drums in the original sample, but just had a bit more swing and stuff. So I ended up with something like this. So you can see here in the main drum group, it's a bit of EQ here, just ducking this out. Now I mentioned, I think in the last one, that I love drum bus. I'm not the only one. Drum bus is a really good effect, built into Ableton, comes with Ableton, which is amazing. I know a lot of people who would pay good money for similar effects. And if you want that kind of slightly distorted sound, that slightly kind of just make drums loud and make them sound quote unquote good, this does it really well and quite simply. Things to watch out for here, so it's already compressed on the way in. A bit of drive there, just again to give it a bit of grit. It's like I mentioned, that kind of EQ before it. And I wanted the decay on the bass is, I dialed that down a bit so it's not too boomy when the kick comes in. Hopefully helped by kind of high passing that a little bit. So if I take the drums off and I show you before and after, and I'll take the EQ off as well. So this is what it sounds like without. Sounds okay, but a bit weak. And then sorry, I should say that. And then that's being routed to my drum bus, which is here. So I'll take those effects off as well. The limiter's there just to kind of catch the peaks and stop things getting too crazy. So I'll take the Kramer tape simulator, which again I mentioned before. Great plugin for doing that kind of tapey type effect. So if I play that, and that's what it sounds like with pretty much no effects on. I mean, it's kind of, there's some EQ and stuff in the individual hits and stuff, but that's without. And then on this drum group, we've still got the EQ. So if I put the drum bus on now, they'll sound louder. Everything starts to sound a bit more beefed up. And then just to make get that kind of more vintage soul-y sound, I added the Kramer tape emulator, which again I love. It doesn't cost too much on Waves normally, which is really good. So not quite as extreme. When I demoed it last time, I was using it for the for Mike's vocals, particularly in the vocals last time. I had the flux all the way up to make it sound like a really broken tape machine. This wasn't that. So what I did with this one is just a little bit of flux here, but still a little bit of that slapback delay. So you've got that kind of like bounce and more vintage sounding drums. So all together, it sounds like this. And that's a drum sound. It's pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy on there. In terms of the individual hits, again, I won't spend too long on the drums here, but basically, so I've got the kick here, kind of quite a natural kick sound there. Bit of glue compression on the kick, it never hurts. People say don't do that, I don't care. Again, quite a natural sounding snare, I think. Okay, just got a notification saying it was a bit of a disconnection, so hopefully you're still there. Stay with me, people. Anyway, we're back. Or we're still broadcasting. Interesting. Anyway, this is live, hooray! So yeah, the snare, I mean the reverb is really just there on the snare, just so it carries a bit further. So this is kind of what it sounds like without. Nothing wrong with it, just a bit, I wanted to just to carry a bit more, so a bit of reverb afterwards, and then again a compressor after that, so you end up with something like this. Just kind of has a bit more life to it, I think. Let me move that up there. And then hats, there's, yeah, pretty straightforward, solely drum rack, at least as far as I'm concerned. So if I play that and the main sample together, you get something like this. There you go. So yeah, that was the drums for the main track, and again, kind of enhances and just beefs up the track in the original sample. So that's the main drums. Should mention this bit here. So just to raise the energy on this part of the song, I've also got some rides in. Same philosophy. Now this almost a bit of cheating, but again, just rather than just having, I could have just drawn in a set of rides. Straight, but actually to add some variety and make it sound a little bit more live-ish, there is a plugin on here which randomizes the velocity, and you randomize the velocity and it changes the volume basically, or how that is in the mix. Not by a huge amount, it just needs to kind of duck it every now and again, you know, make certain bits louder, certain a bit softer, just like a real drummer would, just to vary up the volume a little bit, I suppose. So that sounds like, and you probably won't be able to even hear the variances in volume that much, to be honest. But I'll just play this quickly. If I just solo this, you can hear the ride ring. Getting ahead of myself. So it's just that on the ride cymbal, which is what I wanted, just to help, just to kind of change up that second verse a little bit. But apart from that, the drums are pretty much the same all the way through. And I brought the rides back in again on that last verse. And then there's a couple of bits where I added kind of fills and things like this one, which I quite like. And that kind of stuff. So, that's the main drums. Not quite as complex as the other one. The drum and bass drums are a bit more, a bit different, but there we go. So I'm just gonna have a small drink if that's okay with everyone. Orange squash. Don't know why I told you that. It's not beer. Yeah. Right. So next, I will go on to the bass. And the bass is kind of an interesting one on this. So you will notice, actually, I personally think that the bass on here sounds quite live. Now that's just me, and I wanted to have a quite a live, kind of smooth sounding bass sound. It's it's not a drum and bass track yet. It didn't need that kind of re-C, kind of really kind of in your face kind of EDM bass sound. So this is, again, this is kind of stock plugins. It's actually a bass sound I use quite a lot, built into Ableton, called, appropriate enough, Simple Bass. And if I take the ARP off, so this is the arpeggiator off. This is what it sounds like without the arpeggiator doing its thing. So again, the bass line is something I came up with, again, to complement the sample. It sounds something like this. Not too interesting, and it kind of, to my mind anyway, that sounds like actually quite close to a pretty decent live soul bass sound, like a Fender P bass kind of sound, that kind of thing, with the highs kind of rolled all the way off. But I wanted it to be a bit more interesting because single notes don't really have much funk or much soul. Not saying an arpeggiator necessarily does either, but this arpeggiator, which again this is all built into Ableton, I think. Actually, yeah, to be fair, this isn't the standard arpeggiator. This is a Max for Live one, slightly more advanced than the stock arpeggiator that you get with Ableton 11. Max for Live is, so this is Ableton 11 Suite. It comes with Max for Live. Max for Live allows you to really kind of open up a whole bunch of crazy effects, including things like this kind of more complex arpeggiator, which I really like using. So when I apply the arpeggiator to that bass line, you'll see it's not a consistent kind of on every note. I've kind of missed out some notes to give it a bit more swing and a bit more swagger, and varied up the velocity a little bit with that. You get something like this. So that's what it sounds like. That's the bass on its own, and then that comes through to my bass channel, and it makes it seem almost surprising. So there's a bit of EQ before that. Good old trusty sausage fattener, which is great just to again beef up the bass sound. I probably overuse it, but never mind, just go with it. But not too much. It's actually quite subtly used on this one. Didn't change the colour too much, but again, it just helps me kind of beefs up the bass. And then that gets side changed so that when I've got the fairly standard thing where I sidechain the kick, or the low from the drums anyway, so that when the kick comes in, that ducks out the bass, so that it just leaves a bit more space so you can kind of hear the kick, so that the two don't come in together. So what does that sound like? It's something like this. And so yeah, that's the main rhythm track, which is very cool. I very much like it. So the bass is here, and I think the thing to watch out for with this sidechainy thing, people use it a lot. It's not like a French house track. You don't necessarily want it to be pumping every time the kick hits. So the ratio is quite low. The attack is reasonably slow, and the release says so it's not a fast compressor on that kick. It just needs to duck it every now and again, really, and there's this kind of soft compression just so it gets out of the way a little bit when that kick comes in and then comes back. At least that's what I think it does anyway. Not an expert in this stuff. So that's the rhythm. next, so what should I go on to? I think next I will go on to the guitar. So I played some live guitar on this, which I'm really happy with. Nothing wrong with Fenton's original guitar on it. Lovely bass solo, not bass solo, guitar solo that he played at the beginning. But I kind of when I had the loop in, I had this kind of octave guitar thing figure. It just kind of came to mind, and actually I could just play it straight in. So I did, and I played it with my trusty SG. So if I go back very, very briefly, if you guys don't mind. So if I go back to this one, and I will just show you, for anybody who's seen it, hopefully you can see that. This is the guitar I played it on, my trusty Epiphone SG, which my lovely wife bought me, got about 20 years ago now, which is kind of crazy. But it's a guitar I love. I did get new machine heads fitted, which actually work much better. But it's a great guitar for doing this kind of soul-y kind of stuff. 3 humbuckers, which is ridiculous, I know, but there you go. So yeah, all the live guitar for this track was played on this guitar. I've got a Telecaster as well, but that guitar actually seemed to work slightly better. So, and that was played through, so rather than using the built-in amp effects, that guitar was played through my Boss Katana amp, which I haven't got a picture of. I'm not necessarily a gear person per se. You can see I do actually quite a lot of stuff in the box here. I would say though that the Katana is one of my best gear investments ever, possibly. The effects and the amp and everything like that is just really good quality and allows me so much flexibility, which with the kind of music I make is ideal. So you can see here, actually yeah, it's just a bit of delay on the guitar, but the actual guitar itself, so let me play what I played, and you can see here kind of interesting, and it kind of came to me when I was looking back through this session. I actually almost write by reduction, so there's a whole bunch of stuff, and originally I had guitar running all the way through it, and then I realized I didn't need it. You need, as part of just that song structure, I need somewhere for it to go. So the first verse doesn't feature the guitar, but then I bring it in for the second verse, and then you can see there it's kind of coming in for the outro and stuff as well. So it kind of builds to something, and I use the guitar, the octave guitar, to do that. So this is, actually, let's see what that sounds like. I don't think it sounded too bad, but world exclusive. You will hear the guitar that didn't get used on the original track. How about that? So let me take the delay off first. So this is what the original guitar sounded like. Should just bump up. So that was me, like I say, on the SG. Nothing too crazy on there. It's kind of a classic fuzz funk kind of sound to it, which is what I was trying to get. Kind of, I guess, kind of Curtis Mayfield is a name that kind of kept coming back as a kind of reference on this track, and that's the kind of thing I wanted. So this is, and then it's basically that with a bit of delay on it, which gives me this. Just to space it up a little bit, really. So anyway, you get the idea. It just, and so that delay is just a slightly low pass kind of delay, or a lower on the delay EQ, again stock Ableton delay, just to have that kind of vintage, slightly slack back kind of sound. And it's panned to the left a little bit just to provide a bit more space. I will explain why that's important in a bit. But like I say, I didn't use that take in the end because I didn't need it. I recorded it first, and then that's the great thing. You can record this stuff and then just hit 0 on the keyboard once you've chopped these bits, the bits that you want or bits that you don't want, and it will just switch off that clip. And it's always there. You haven't deleted it in case you do want to bring it back for some a bit later. But yeah, it won't play as a result of the track. So that's the first guitar piece. And then I think originally I just played through the whole track. And just as one take, just to kind of play through all the different little pieces. And you can kind of see here I cheated a little bit and kind of took the best kind of performances in that octave thing and kind of mixed them together. So that's what I ended up using on the second verse. So it sounds like this. Excuse the mistakes. So that's the first guitar piece, and then I believe, trying to remember back, I don't make massive notes when I'm recording this stuff, but there was some rhythm guitar as well, which I always kind of forget is in here, but it's kind of in the just in the mix, just slightly low. Slightly different, more phasey guitar sound, again that kind of retro 60s kind of sound to the whole thing, all powered by the katana. So let me just solo this one, and with a bit of reverb in it as well. Actually, too lots of reverb. Ouch. Okay, go with it. It worked fine. And a low pass in here as well. So this is what the rhythm guitar that sits under that as well sounds like. So that was the guitar, so if we play those two together, you will get something like this. I've just realised I forgot to put it back onto the Ableton screen, and you've been watching my face for this long. Anyway, there we go. There's the Ableton screen. So apologies for that, but you can see here the top is the first guitar line, that octave line I was talking about. And this is the second line. This is the kind of rhythm line here with a bit of reverb. All the phaser type effects and all that kind of stuff. That was again all through the amp. And I kind of like that. So once it's printed, it's down. You can't change it too much, which may sound a little bit restrictive, but actually that can be good. It can mean you can. I don't know about you when you're producing, but you can get a bit lost in the kind of changeability of some of this stuff. So it's kind of nice sometimes to limit yourself in a way and kind of go, that's the sound, I recorded it today, and then you EQ and stuff on top of that to fit it into the mix, but you'll work with something rather than necessarily, no, I'll swap this out for this flanger and that kind of thing. Sometimes the inverse is better. Sometimes you do want and need that changeability, so you can swap out the flanger for a chorus or something. Not saying either way is right or wrong, just again different techniques, that's all. Okay, so that's the two main guitars. There's quite a lot of guitar in this one. It was a fun kind of day recording all the guitars for this. This is something called Chicken Pick Guitar. Shout out to my old guitar teacher, who was the one who kind of introduced me to a lot of this kind of funk playing actually, and trying to play this kind of stuff, or kind of versions of this. This is me trying to be Nile Rodgers, doing that kind of tucka type sound. Yes, that's a technical term. Tucka. Sounds something like this. And again, I just found a good bit and looped it up, and that kind of sits in. So if I play that in over this second verse, again, it's all about kind of amping up the energy in it. So you can see I cut out the main guitar there. So the first verse without it sounds like this. And this is the second verse with it. Hello, new joiners. There are a couple of new people online. Hello. So this is what the second verse sounds like with that kind of chicken pick guitar. can just kind of hear it slightly in the mix. I didn't want it to overtake the main lead vocal. And there's a little kind of rhythm guitar figure that comes in there as well, just to add even more guitar on the second half, because, you know, it's a guitar bluesy track with a bit of soul and hip hop and stuff in there as well. So yeah, there was one more kind of rhythm guitar track that is in there as well, just layered up just to fatten up the rhythm chords really, so they sound like this together. Slight panning left and right on that, and they sound like this in the mix. So that's the guitars. That's mainly the guitars. I'll go through the lead guitar as well. So, I kind of do class myself as a guitarist first. Really, I love playing drums. I love producing and stuff, and I do other synthy things as well. But primarily, a lot of my knowledge of music and when it kind of clicked was when I started playing guitar. So I do love playing guitar. I kind of almost shy away from it sometimes because it can feel like a bit of a dirty word sometimes, but I like doing it. I do like doing it. So I try I try not to put too many big solos on my tracks these days, but in this one I felt it needed it and I felt it fit, and actually from the feedback I've had so far, other people feel the same, so go with it. So this is the lead sound I used. Again, kind of most of the lead sound itself was from the Katana, so there's a kind of fuzzy kind of sound I used there, and I used the same when I play it live, or have played it live in various streaming sessions over the past year or so. Plan to do the same again. So I'll play without I'll explain what the compressor's doing there in a bit. This is just a bit of channel EQ, so you can see I bumped the mids just a little bit just to help it cut through, and cut the lows a little bit again because I want it. It's kind of the higher range, and the other guitars are doing the lower stuff. So this is what it sounds like without the delay on. Okay, so it's that kind of thing. And if I put the delay on, it sounds like this. So that's that the kind of guitar on this one. Now that little bit, this figure here, you probably wouldn't have heard that on a record because I sidechained. There's this kind of guitar figure I tried to make work earlier in the song. It's actually from a sample from a different song, which obviously I cleared. So this is that sample. And it's just kind of this, again, slightly funky thing with a bit of delay on it. See, I really like using delays. So effectively, so the side chaining here ducks the lead sound whenever that little figure comes in from the sample. So when you put the two together, let me try this, solo that one, you'll hear it here. And then the lead comes back up here. So there you go. That's the end section. So just to give it a bit of context, I will play that. I'll play it all together. So I'll play the end section. Let me just mute. Yeah, I'm going to mute Mila's vocals just for a sec, and then you can hear that lead over the rhythm track. And I'll come in just after the middle 8 as well, so you can hear that build. Somewhat interesting. There we go. Apologies. OBS seems to be disconnecting a lot today. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but yeah, that is not something that's happened before. Anyway, apologies. It's there. You can watch back if you're getting frustrated, and I'll go back and I'll add chapters and whatnot, so you can jump to specific sections if you want to find out how I did certain things within this. Anyway, let's move on. Let me get rid of that. So, what's left on this? There's a few bits. I'm gonna do the vocals last, I think, because I was really happy the way they turned out, and I think they're a key bit of this song. So, if it's okay with everyone, I'll do the strings first. And again, the reference point for this one for me, I know it's Fenton's song that I sampled in this, but for me, it kind of had. I wanted it to sound like a kind of classic Curtis Mayfield song or that kind of thing. So the strings were vital in this one, and the strings I used were Spitfire Audio's frankly brilliant BBC Symphony Orchestra pack, which I think I actually got for free, which is unbelievable that this is free. But even if you were to buy it, well worth it. I'm always looking for really good, or I was always looking for really good string sounds and string sample packs. This definitely does the job. I've used it so much since then, I can't even begin to tell you. So, and it has the whole orchestra. So for this, there's effectively two main string sounds, a kind of lower string register and a higher string. So for this, I've used the cello sound. It's actually two notes coming in. So the main note here, which I've drawn in, and an octave below that. So if I just solo that, and that's panned slightly to the right to add a bit more space for the strings, and you'll hear that more in a sec, but this is what it sounds like. Let me get rid of the EQ. So the EQ is really just the shape of the sound as well, but let me get rid of the chord sound. So this is the original figure. Sounds fine, nothing wrong with that, but again, just to make it a bit more interesting, this is what it sounds like with the octave in there as well. So I don't know what you guys, but to me that kind of just helps thicken up the sound whenever just adding that octave in with this little built-in MIDI Ableton chord plugin. I'm assuming, I mean, there may be others equivalents available for non-MIDI and non-Ableton users, but this thing's really great. I use it quite a lot for these kind of scenarios. And again, just a bit of EQ on top of that, just to help kind of bump the mids a little bit, to help that help the cello kind of cut through, or celli, I should say. So, and then there's a slightly higher version of that, an octave up. So they've used that on the chorus before the middle 8, before the outro. So, and again, it's about kind of ramping up the energy. So this is the first. So that audio, I'll just remind everyone, was for the chorus before the end, or the last proper chorus, I guess. And then to give it a bit more energy, I bumped the figure up by an octave, and still with that that dual octave down playing at the same time, if you see what I mean. Maybe if I take this out, I'll explain better. So I'll take this off as well. So this is what the second version of that sounds like. It almost sounds more like a violin, so quite higher up the cello. But again, if I put that octave back in, it just beefs it up a bit more. So that's the cello sound in this, and that would probably, many instances would be fine in its own right. But then I've got a higher string sound on top of that, just to kind of, again, kind of add sort of kind of bigger strings that's come up. So this only comes in on that very end piece, just when I wanted everything to kind of come to a big kind of, just go for it. So you've got all the strings, you've got a lead there. So this is playing to the left-hand side. I believe in this one I'm using the violin, the same pack. Yeah, the violins too, which is this one here. And the same trick here, I use the main figure plus an octave up. So this is what it sounds like without the MIDI effect on. And then with the MIDI effect. You just hear those highs coming through occasionally. So, if I play the string sounds together, this sounds something like this. So there you go. That was the my little string section. So technically, 2 lead lines becomes like a 4-piece string section. To my mind, it kind of sounds like "Right On Through the Darkness" by Curtis Mayfield, or one of those kind of classic soul songs, right? Also, I've listened to a lot of things like Adrian Young and his incredible score for Luke Cage, the first season, which I still listen to very, very regularly. So all that kind of stuff, that kind of classic sounding soul is what I was really kind of going for here. So that's the strings. No other pads on this one, which is kind of surprising for me. Normally I can't help but put some kind of organ or some kind of synth line on this one. Didn't need it really. Could have put. I think maybe I did toy with putting like an organ sound or something on it. Didn't need it, honestly. So I will come back to the verses. Now the verses were fun. The verses were, sorry, the vocals were really good fun. So we ended up, if I go back to the pictures, yeah. So the picture there on the right hand side, that, like I said, that's us recording the vocal. It was just the 2 of us in Safe House. Shout out to Mike at Safe House Studios. In a completely socially distanced recording session, and it was recorded kind of quite early on, or kind of late after lockdown 1, I think, maybe. But anyway, we got in Safe House and recorded that. Just the 2 of us. I brought all my gear down, so I brought my Scarlett, Focusrite Scarlett audio interface and my laptop, and borrowed some of Safe House's mics, because they've got better mics than I do. And before we actually did this, I haven't got it to hand, so I won't play it to you now. But Mila, bless her, recorded the vocals. She didn't really have any recording equipment of her own at the time, so she sent me this little video snippet. And this is the thing. This is, I thought, we have to record this properly, basically. she sent me these videos where she was just kind of singing into the room with the track playing on headphones, I think, and she would record the audio on like a tablet or something, and you could tell something was there. You could tell, you could just hear it in her voice that, you know, she had that soul. It sounded really natural, and you'll see in a bit. I've tried to. There's no pitch correction and stuff. There's a couple of edits in the vocals, but I wanted this vocal to sound as soulful and as natural as possible. That was there in the original videos I had, so well, this is really cool. But we need to get into a room and record this, you know, properly, or my version of properly anyway. So we did. And that's where we recorded it. So what you'll hear today is the results of that recording session. And I think we booked it out. I think I booked it for like 3 hours or something, and we managed to get the song done then. I would say definitely helped by the fact that we kind of plotted the whole thing beforehand, because Mila had sent me these vocal demos that she recorded herself. So it meant when we could get into the room, we could be really efficient. We kind of knew what we were doing, and we could just kind of focus on little bits. So she knew her lyrics. I mean, you can see there's overdubs, and they kind of dropped in little bits and pieces, like I say, here and there. But yeah, we knew we had a pretty good idea of what we were going to do. So let me go back to my Ableton screen again before I forget. So this is what we recorded. So you can see here I have got the verse vocals, and I've treated the chorus vocals separately. I think, in fact, no, use the same vocal grouping for the verses. Sometimes, depending on sometimes I may want to treat the second verse separately. If it's this kind of verse, chorus, verse structure, I may want to treat the second verse in a different way to the first verse, in which case I'll put them on different tracks. But actually, this one, it just sounded fine to me to treat it all on one track. And this is, we recorded this in Ableton Live 10 before comping was a thing, and before you could have different takes. So I just created a whole bunch of audio takes and then kind of manually slice it together. It worked for me. It worked for me. So let me play you the native audio, and then I will play you what it sounds like with the effects on, and which effects I use. So this is Mila's raw vocal. That is interesting. It's not playing. Because I muted all of it, all the vocal audio. All right, this time it will work. So this is Mila's raw audio vocal.
Yesterday I was silent and compliant, but today I pushed too far, now I'm defiant. I'm heading out the door, gonna fight against what you stand for and change these metaphors.
Okay, so that's the main thing. And when she sang it, she just sang it straight through and then went in the chorus. But I took that and then put it on a different channel so I could treat the chorus bits slightly differently. So for the verse here, and you could just hear that coming through. There's a kind of slight harmony thing just underpinning a few of those lines which I dropped in. I don't think it needed a harmony on the whole thing, so she recorded this. So yeah, just this little bit here.
I'm heading out the door.
Just adds a bit of punch on that bit. So what I did then, one of my go-tos for vocal treatment, or at least probably will be for a little while, is Isotope Nectar. This is version 2. It is great. I am not by any means an expert at vocal processing. And those presets you just saw are ideal for just having a quick go-to vocal sound that is very usable, very musical, and sounds great, and can really fit into a mix really well. One thing I have stopped doing so much is actually using so many of the built-in effects. I can get a bit carried away with some of them. So yeah, you can see here there's no delays and stuff. Actually, no, that's a lie. There is delay here. So it does it all. I put it all in. Ignore that. Sometimes I do kind of try not to use the delays and the reverbs within this effect, and then add them in within Ableton, so I can put it in as part of the wider mix. But in this case, I thought it works, so go ahead. And actually the soulful, and again it's about that kind of soulful kind of vocal, so I use a soulful preset, just tweak that a little bit, maybe change the EQ, and ended up with this.
Yesterday I was silent and
So that's with the effects on.
compliant, but
I'll switch
today
them
I
off.
pushed too far, now I'm defiant. I'm heading
Back on again.
out the door, gonna fight against what you stand for and change these metaphors up.
So, and then there's a glue compressor over the top of that as well, just to kind of squeeze everything out, even out the volume a little bit. So that's over the top of all of the vocals I added in here too. So that's the verse vocals from Mila, and pretty much the same for the second verse as well. So I'll just play that quickly, just so you can see I'm not lying.
Will not pander to your privilege and power. Will not sit here while my spirit's being devoured. Will not wait for you to quit being a coward.
So you get the idea. I don't like taking out too many of the breathy things. I did some editing in here just to kind of, you know, clean it up a little bit. But again, I wanted it to have that natural sound, and it may sound like a bit of a cop-out, but it didn't. Mila was on pitch. She didn't need any kind of, you know, auto-tuning or any of that rubbish on this particular track. Again, nothing. I know it sounds a bit anti what I just said. Nothing wrong with auto-tune on certain tracks. I use a lot of my voice. Didn't need it on this because Mila can actually sing. Okay, I have not got the best voice in the world, and I will auto-tune my own voice till the cows go home. So, but didn't need it on here. So there you can see here, there is a built-in pitch function, but it's just not on. It's absolutely not needed. So it's really just kind of keeping it quite simple, a bit of compression, bit of saturation, EQ, and then that reverb and delay going into a limiter. So that's that, and again it's a bit of doubling there. Now the chorus was kind of interesting because we really wanted to kind of layer it up, so there's quite a few different takes, kind of the same thing, and it just really kind of it's kind of to add weight to those choruses that came in. Now what kind of, and then again used my trusty Isotope Nectar plugin on the different vocal pieces. So you've got the main kind of stem here with Isotope on. Actually, let me get rid of the group vocal sounds. So there is a saturator just to beef up, make things a bit louder, and I'll come on to what I did in a bit. So this is what the original, the main kind of lead vocal line from the verse sounded like, with Nectar on originally.
Oppressor, I've heard it all before.
And with it off.
Can't tolerate your system no more, no.
Okay, and this is what just a double tracking it sounded like. So this is again so just to point out, no effects on this one. It just kind of beefs up the vocal on top. So this is what that sounds like.
I've heard it all before.
Dial down some of the highs on this one because I didn't need it so much.
Can't tolerate your system.
And then we punched in a few kind of oppressors just to kind of add to that initial bit, so they sound like, and they're kind of quite low in the mix. You almost can't tell they're there, but they add to the whole kind of feel of the choruses, so they sound something like this with a whole bunch of delay, so they kind of just rattle through the rest of the choruses. Let me just turn it up. This might get quite loud, and it's just kind of little tweaks a bit just to kind of keep things interesting, I guess. So that's in there, and then some. So the key thing I wanted to kind of in the track to kind of go from here for the verses to out here for the choruses. If you can see my hands, there we go. To add, so it kind of just adds a bit more dynamics to the song. So it starts from here, and Mila's voice kind of pretty much in mono, and then the choruses will kind of go to widescreen, so out here somewhere. In fact, beyond what the cameras show. So that was my main goal with this, and so that is where. So the saturator again just kind of adds a bit more grit into the vocals, and this thing called Wider, which I believe you can get for free, does just that. So it kind of goes from this kind of more more kind of narrow field, more kind of mono vocal, and just kind of widens it a little bit. So this is what it sounds like without that. Oh, still soloing the other piece, bear with me. Yeah, there we go. So this is what the chorus sounds like without the wider plugin.
Oppressor, I've heard it all before.
This is what it sounds like with.
Can't tolerate your system no more, no. I'm standing with my people strong.
So it's not huge, but again, it just kind of adds to the width a little bit on verses, particularly with the double tracking. And then when it comes back into the next verse, it kind of goes back down to there again. So they're the main choruses. How much time we got left? We're not doing too bad. So, and pretty much they're treated the same way. Different takes of the same thing. I think there's another chorus double in there as well, just for that second chorus to, again, add to the weight. So the last bit we did, vocal-wise, was the ending. And this, so, okay, just to name check a few other people, or rattle off a few other inspirations. Big Massive Attack kind of feel on this one. And I can't think of what the song is now. I think it's Thankful for What You Got, which is a great kind of soul song, and Massive Attack did it really well. And it's kind of at the end of it, or kind of Unfinished Sympathy or something like that, where you've got the soul voice, and at the end you just kind of, I wanted it just to sink into the background a little bit. Obviously you've got all the lead sounds and everything that I showed you before happening too, but in the line is key. The "Let There Be a Lesson in Love" is there, but it's kind of more haunting in that, and that's what I was kind of going for. So you can see here, so I actually didn't use Nexer on this one. I didn't think it needed it, but I've got the glue compressor, which is a great compressor for pretty much everything, particularly drums. I actually use it on vocals here, plus a saturator, plus a delay, plus a reverb, and that gave me the sound I wanted, which is great. So if I just take that off for the time being, so you can hear, and it's kind of doubled and all that, and we kind of just sang that line and let that note ring out, and I wanted to enhance that kind of ringing out, I suppose. So that sounds like this without any of those effects on.
Now let this be a lesson of love.
So that double tracking just comes, there's no effects on that, that just comes from playing the two bits of audio together basically, and you get that kind of natural chorusy type sound. So then the glue, just to stick it all together, the saturator and a bit of delay, and then a reverb, and it becomes this much more spacey thing. So if I play it from here, actually if I zoom in a bit, there we go. So if I play it from here with all those effects on, you get something like this.
Now let this be a lesson of love.
Okay, and it's pretty much the same line. She does a few variations on that, and there's a bit of a kind of ending harmony on that as well. So just so you know what they sound like, I will play those in stereo. But again, it's all part of that same group with the same kind of reverb and delays in as well. So they sound like this in isolation. Which is really nice. It's just kind of this whole thing. And this is all Mila. This is, we had no other singers in this. You just did these incredible soul choir vocals. I should say, so I mentioned this here, so I met Mila originally through Cyphers. So been mates with Pete Kidkin, who plays in Cyphers as well for quite a long time. And yeah, I've seen Cyphers play great. They play a lot. Mila's got this, always saw her with that kind of soul voice at the centre of this kind of more post-rock band, and I always wondered what she would be like singing a soul song. And it's really great that I got her to do it. Hopefully we will do more soon. There are talks, so I talked anyway. Anyway, so I mean, the fact that she was able to layer this up, and I you know, all credit to her. I didn't instruct her at all in terms of the kind of notes to sing or how to put these harmonies together. This is all her, okay? So I feel incredibly lucky that she just has this kind of knowledge of doing that, because I wouldn't know what when I'm producing some of these vocals, I can say, yeah, make it louder, or do that again but better, in the nicest possible way. But in terms of actually explaining and specific lead lines or whatnot, I'm not so good at doing that. So this is what that sounds like all together.
Now let this be a lesson.
And this is what it sounds like in context. Okay, so that's the vocals basically, and I think, yeah, that is everything in the song. Just to mention here, just quickly, just to finish it all off, no idea what I use this audio channel here for. I'm sure I had an intention for it a little while back, but just there. So the vocals are routed through to this vocal bus track. Again, nothing too fancy on there. There is a thing I did use in here called the Vocal Rider, which is another Waves plugin. Shout out to Waves, they're not endorsing this, but they make good plugins. And you can see here that I used it just a little bit, really, just to kind of what it basically does when you work it correctly is kind of, rather than compressing the vocal, it kind of rides the vocal volume up and down automatically for you, depending on what else is going on in the track. So that's there for the main vocal line. I didn't use it, I don't think. No, it's not there on the backing vocals. But if you want the main vocal to fit in, this is really effective. So it effectively kind of, it keeps the vocal even without using compression, so it sounds more natural, which again is all part of what I wanted to achieve with this sound. So both vocals then go to a general reverb send, and again this is, people knock the Ableton built-in reverb. Again, this is before Ableton 11 and some of the fancier reverbs you've got in there now. But for me, this does the job fine. So just a few sends. So if I just solid reverbs, you can hear what that sounds like. It's something like this. So you've got a reverb on the vocals, and then even more reverb just to kind of add a bit of reverb into the mix, I suppose. So that sounds something like this. And you've got the drum reverb and stuff. So to my mind anyway, there's quite a few things that come out to this reverb, but it's that kind of reverb that makes it sound less like it's coming through a box and more like it's in a room. Potentially, obviously it's not quite like it's in a room, because that's a difficult thing to do. And this is all produced on my laptop. So yeah, that's what I went for. And that's it. That's the whole track. What is on the master? Nothing. So again, the trusty inspector, which I used there. Actually a bit cheeky, kind of peaking maybe a bit more than I would do normally there. Normally, like I said in the last session, try to leave at least 3 or 4 dBs of headroom, and then definitely do the mastering in a separate session. So focus on myself on the mixing here, and then do mastering. Or give it to someone else who can do the mastering properly in a separate thing. Okay, that's it. That is the end of the session. That's the whole track. If it's okay with everyone, I'm actually going to leave the drum and bass bit. If you want a separate video on that, then let me know. Hit me up on Instagram, on Twitter. Let me switch back to my camera just while I'm signing off. Yeah, if you want another thing, maybe I'll do a bonus video at some point if people are interested on the drum and bass remix, and how I did that, using pretty much the same. The nice thing about remixing your own tracks, you can have all the stems, right? So you don't have to worry about somebody giving you all the pieces because you've already got them. But yeah, that was a fun one to do. So if you want a video on that, let me know on Instagram, on Twitter @TigerMendoza, on Facebook, and let me know what you thought of these videos. I'm going to leave it there for the time being, but again, if there's interest, if you like what you're hearing, then maybe I'll do some more in the future. Also, I will say at this juncture, I haven't done an isolation wave stream in a little while, so I think I've got another one in me at some point. So yeah, I think that it's about time. We'll see when it happens. Not entirely sure when yet, but we'll do another Isolation Wave DJ set in the not too distant future. I think I'm going to play out on just that last section because I'm really happy the way it turned out. So here we go. That's it. That is a song. That is Oppressor. Feel free to buy it. Feel free to stream it. That'd be great. And let me know, like I say, in the comments what you thought of the video, and feel free to reach out in future. Okay, until next time, guys. Take it easy. Take care of yourselves, and yes, have fun with whatever you're doing, whatever music you are producing. All right. Till then, bye.